Hi folks, welcome back to another video in my series on some of the most over-the-top puzzles in my Twisty puzzle collection. So we're moving on now further into the strange geometries offered by the Very Puzzle line of puzzles. Last time we talked about the RT version 1.0 F1 based on the rhombic triacontahedron geometry. And now we're looking at another member of the RT family, this one here, which is called the Rhombic Tuttminx 66. So this one takes a couple of steps to explain, so bear with me as I try to do that. So the previous puzzle, as we know, was based on the rhombic triacontahedron, where they truncated off the corners to give us also these pentagonal faces. However, there's nothing turnable on the pentagonal faces. So Very Puzzle, of course, thought about that, and they released another puzzle subsequently called the Rhombic Tuttminx. The Rhombic Tuttminx took this basic geometry and added a turnable face around all the pentagons. So that ended up with having 42 turnable faces rather than the 30 in the RT version 1 and version 1 F1. And that puzzle is particularly notable. I recommend going to Very Puzzle's website and looking at it because it's quite stunning. Not only does it have 42 faces you can turn, but it has 80 colors to solve. So it looks absolutely fantastic. And when you see pictures of it scrambled, it's pretty intimidating stuff. It looks pretty incredible. That puzzle was very popular and got a good response. So Very Puzzle decided to experiment a bit more with that rhombic Tuttminx shape, and they created this guy, the Rhombic Tuttminx 66. So in that one, they took that Rhombic Tuttminx, which had 42 faces and these additional pentagonal faces among them, and they said, well, what happened if we took all of those pentagons and turned them into regular hexagonal faces? And that's what you end up with on the Rhombic Tuttminx 66. So you can see that all these clearly identifiable circular faces that we can turn are based around a regular hexagon. And these are the replacements for those pentagonal faces. But at first glance, it looks a bit odd, right? So you have these turnable circles, and you have all of these hollow triangles, but it's not immediately obvious how you actually scramble the thing, right? So I mean, these two faces are turnable, but they're so far apart I can't mix pieces between them. But then as you play with it, you find that actually what you need to do, well, go back to this one. If I move the purple face just right, then it creates an additional face now between these two regular hexagonal faces. So now I can turn this face that has emerged and swap pieces back and forth and start scrambling things. And it also scrambles these hollow triangles as well. The hollow triangles are there basically to show you kind of the boundaries of the area around each hexagonal face. And it adds a bit to the visual element of the scramble. It looks pretty impressive, like a ball of futuristic confetti when it's fully scrambled. So that's basically how the puzzle works. In order to scramble and solve pieces, you're constantly, realigning the regular hexagon faces such that you create these irregular hexagon faces, and then you can start moving pieces around, like so. And it creates a really interesting and unusual kind of solving process. And it does fit the Tuttminx name really well because you have these two distinct types of faces. And the irregular hexagon faces are sort of second-order faces, right? They're not present by default. They have to be created in order to facilitate your movement. So these faces effectively don't exist unless I've properly aligned the faces that connect to them. So we have a potential face here that doesn't exist yet, and now I've created it, and then I can start using it. So it's a very interesting and unusual kind of puzzle, and I bought this because I watched a very lengthy solve and discussion of this puzzle by a YouTuber called Pete the Geek, which is an appropriate enough title, and he just endlessly raved about this puzzle, and I watched part of the solve, not the whole 4 hours of it, but it just seemed really interesting and really fun. It's definitely going to be challenging, but not in a punishing sort of way. And I like this aspect of repeatedly creating and destroying turnable faces on the puzzle in order to move things around. It also, like the RT version 1 over there, has carbon fiber textured stickers on the main regular hexagonal faces, which means that these seemingly identical edge and corner pieces actually are not identical and have an orientation that needs to be considered. And if they're placed in the right position but the wrong orientation, the patterns along the carbon fiber stickers will not match up. So that also creates an additional challenge to the puzzle. I'm really, I can't even tell you how excited I was to get this puzzle. I really hyped myself up, reading about it and talking about it online and watching videos and stuff. And it's just really my type of thing. I mean, it looks incredible, like some kind of futuristic alien artifact. It's got a great set of stickers. They're very sturdy. All these spherical puzzles have been cleverly designed so that the pieces have a slight lip to them. And that means the stickers are slightly recessed into the puzzle, and that helps protect them from chipping and other types of damage. So, they did design this not just as a pretty and interesting object and a weird geometry, but as a really solvable, playable puzzle. And the turning quality is good. It's a little bit stiff at times, but I'm absolutely certain, I have enough experience now to say that as I play with this more, scramble it and solve it a couple of times, it's going to become nicely broken in. And already I could easily, scramble and solve this in its current state without feeling that it needs to be lubricated or anything like that. It has a really nice turning to it. So, I 100% recommend this puzzle if it's something that looks of interest to you. The changing of the geometry from the regular Rhombic Tuttminx has created this very unique style of solving, at least unique in my collection. I'm sure there's other puzzles that have similar things, but I don't have them. It looks great. It feels great in the hand. It's really nicely made, and I do recommend, I think it's an additional $5 or $6 to get them to sticker the whole thing for you, and they really did a perfect job. There's not a single problem with any sticker on this puzzle, so an easy recommendation. If you only want to get one puzzle out of the RT series, I think you could definitely go for this one. There's also some other similar variants. So there's the spherical Tuttminx 66, which is basically a spherical transformation of the Tuttminx, except all the pentagons have been turned into irregular hexagon faces in a similar fashion to this one. That puzzle also looks really cool and is definitely on my list. Very excited to check that out at some point. But yeah, really, really excited to do a solve of this one. Definitely one of the puzzles that at the moment I'm most excited to have in my collection. And while it was winging my way over to me from China, I was very deeply anticipating getting this. So that's the Rhombic Tuttminx 66 from Very Puzzle. Definitely one of the more intriguing and over-the-top puzzles in my collection. Has a number of unique aspects in terms of the solve and the geometry and the look as well. So to me, definitely deserves pride of place in my collection. So moving on from here, that's the last of the puzzles I have in the RT series, and we'll move on to one of Very Puzzle's largest monstrosities lurking there in the corner. So I'll see you next time for that one.